What if Goku was the Saiyan who mastered time and space? Goku x Bulma x Chi-Chi. Chapter 1. Fracture Point. The mountains surrounding Mount Paozu vibrated with golden energy as Goku completed his 10,000th one-finger push-up. Sweat crystallized in the air around him, evaporating before touching the ground. Since defeating Majin Buu 3 years ago, P.C.E. had settled across Earth, the kind of tranquility that made warriors restless. He flipped upright in a single fluid motion, landing soundlessly despite the crater his training had formed in the ancient stone. 1,000,000 times Earth's gravity, he murmured, adjusting the modified gravity bracelet Bulma had designed for him. Still not enough. The sun hung at its zenith, casting no shadows in the clearing where Goku trained. Birds had long since abandoned the area, instinctively sensing the concentration of power that distorted natural law around the Saiyan. He closed his eyes, extending his senses beyond the physical realm. Feeling the key signatures of every living being within a 100-mile radius. Chi-Chi was at home, her energy signature flowing through practiced forms of the Ox King's ancient martial arts. Gohan was at the university, his scholarly pursuits having taken precedence over training. Goten played with Trunks at Capsule Corporation, their energies intertwining in mock battle. And Bulma. Her energy pulsed with the rhythm of creation, mind racing as she worked on her latest invention. Goku smiled. Though lacking the combat power of the Z fighters, Bulma's brilliance radiated in ways his enhanced Saiyan senses had grown increasingly attuned to over the years. Their connection, forged through countless adventures since childhood, had evolved into something he couldn't quite define, something that existed alongside, yet distinct from, his bond with Chi-Chi. A distant flickering caught his attention, like a candle guttering in non-existent wind. It wasn't a key signature, exactly. But something more fundamental, a disturbance in, what? Space itself. Goku frowned, concentrating on the anomaly. In all his battles across universes and dimensions, he'd never sensed anything quite like it. Might as well check it out, he decided, gathering his energy. Not like I've got anything better to do. The instant transmission technique had become second nature years ago. But as Goku placed 2 fingers to his forehead and concentrated on the disturbance, something felt different. The familiar sensation of disassembling into energy particles stretched longer than usual. The journey through subspace warping strangely around him. Colors he had no names for streaked past his consciousness, and whispers of timelines never realized echoed in dimensions he'd never perceived before. When reality reassembled around him, Goku found himself floating not in Earth's atmosphere, but in the cold void between galaxies. Below him stretched an impossible CGHT, a nexus point where dozens of cosmic filaments intersected, creating a web-like structure that pulsed with energies beyond mortal comprehension. Streams of matter and antimatter collided and annihilated in silent explosions, creating new forms of existence with each cosmic breath. What the? Goku instinctively tried to draw breath before remembering he was in vacuum. Yet somehow, he wasn't dying. He could breathe, or rather, he didn't need to breathe at all. His body had adapted instantly to the void, as though the concept of requiring oxygen had become optional. At the center of he cosmic web hung a singularity, not black like a hole in space, but prismatic, refracting existence itself into constituent possibilities. As Goku stared into it, the singularity stared back, recognizing something in the Saiyan that resonated with its own nature. "You aren't supposed to be here," came a voice, not through sound waves but directly into Goku's consciousness. "The convergence isn't due for another 7 million years." Quote, the voice belonged to a being that materialized beside the singularity, humanoid in basic shape, but composed of shifting geometric patterns that rearranged themselves constantly. Where a face might be, mathematical equations wrote and rewrote themselves in luminous script. "Sorry about that," Goku replied, somehow knowing his thoughts would transmit to the entity. "I sensed something weird and came to check it out. Are you the one causing disturbances on Earth?" The mathematical being's patterns accelerated. "Earth? That speck? No. The anomalies you sensed are echoes of this." It gestured toward the singularity. "The convergence chamber prepares for its millennial recalibration. Reality requires occasional maintenance, you see." Goku crossed his arms, unintimidated despite the being's obvious cosmic significance. "And who exactly handles this maintenance?" I am Zeno, Chrono's engineer, third recursion. The being's patterns shifted to form what might have been a bow. Though these designations mean nothing to three-dimensional entities, what's remarkable is that you're here at all. Your species shouldn't possess trans-dimensional perception capabilities. Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises, Goku grinned. So what exactly does this chamber do? Zeno's patterns formed what might have been exasperation. It maintains the separation and integrity of timeline branches, prevents paradox cascades, ensures causality functions within acceptable parameters. Basic universal infrastructure. As Zeno spoke, Goku felt drawn toward the prismatic singularity. Not physically, his body remained in place, but something more fundamental, as though his very essence recognized something kindred in the swirling cosmic nexus. You shouldn't approach closer, Zeno warned. Patterns forming urgent angles. Your presence is already causing fluctuations in the calibration sequence. If the chamber recognizes incompatible cosmic signatures during recalibration. Goku wasn't listening. Within the singularity, he glimpsed fragments of existence, parallel Earths where his life had taken different paths. One where he'd never hit his head as a child, remaining Kakarot, the Destroyer. Another where he'd arrived on Earth decades later, finding a world already conquered by Frieza's forces. Countless variations, infinite possibilities, all anchored to decision points throughout his life. And deeper still, something familiar yet forgotten, a power that had always been his birthright, not as a Saiyan, but as something more fundamental to the cosmos itself. Step back. Zeno's warning came too late. The singularity pulsed once, recognizing Goku's unique energy signature, Saiyan strength combined with pure heart, seasoned by divine ki and tempered through battles that had repeatedly broken his limits. It found him interesting, worthy, a suitable conduit. Light erupted from the cosmic nexus, thousands of timeline threads suddenly converging on Goku like lightning drawn to a rod. His body convulsed as cosmic energy flooded his system, rewriting fundamental aspects of his existence at quantum levels. Knowledge and power, nay, Veer meant for mortal minds cascaded through him. The mathematics of temporal mechanics, the language of dimensional folding, the subtle art of probability manipulation. Enough. Zeno's form expanded, geometric patterns becoming a cage around the singularity. The mortal vessel will rupture. Through pain beyond imagination, Goku did what he had always done when facing impossible odds, he adapted. His consciousness expanded, creating new neural pathways to accommodate the cosmic influx. His ki, already evolved beyond mortal limits through divine training, shifted again, integrating tempora and spatial dimensions as naturally as it had once incorporated fire and lightning. The singularity pulsed once more before settling back into its normal rhythm, the crisis apparently averted. Goku hung suspended in space, his body glowing with residual energies that slowly absorbed into his cells. Zeno approached cautiously, patterns rearranging into what might have been concern. Impossible. You should have been reduced to your component quarks. Goku opened his eyes, which now held tiny galaxies where pupils had once been. Wouldn't be the first time someone underestimated me. His voice echoed strangely, as though speaking from multiple points in time simultaneously. The chamber has recognized you. Zeno circled Goku, analyzing the changes. It's integrated you into universal infrastructure. Made you a conduit. A conduit for what? Goku examined his hands, which appeared normal despite the cosmic power now flowing through him. For chronometric energy, the fundamental force that separates and maintains distinct timelines. Zeno's patterns shifted rapidly. This has never happened. You've become a living nexus point. Goku might not have understood the technical explanation, but he grasped the fundamental truth. Something profound had changed within him. He could feel it, a new sense awakening. Just as he had once learned to sense ki, now he could perceive the flow of time itself, not as a linear progression, but as a multidimensional lattice of possibility branches, each timeline humming with unique frequency. So what does this mean? Goku asked, already suspecting the answer wouldn't be simple. It means complications, Zeno replied, patterns forming what might have been a sigh. The chamber doesn't make mistakes. If it chose you as a conduit, there must be purpose. Perhaps. The being paused, calculations running through its mathematical face. Perhaps the threats looming in your sector require direct intervention. Threats. What threats? Earth is at peace right now. Your perception is limited to present-state conditions. The chamber operates on larger scales. Zeno gestured to the cosmic web. Already, your integration is revealing anomalies, fracture points developing across your timeline nexus. Probability cascades that shouldn't be possible. As if triggered by these words, pain lanced through Goku's skull. Visions flooded his consciousness, Earth cracking apart as reality itself unraveled. Familiar faces contorted in agony as they phased in and out of existence. Timeline branches withering, cosmic filaments snapping. And through it all, a shadowy presence, watching from between moments, manipulating the cosmic architecture with calculated precision. I need to get back, Goku gasped, fighting through the disorienting visions. Yes, Zeno agreed, patterns forming complex equations. The chamber's energies must stabilize within your system. I calculate approximately 72 of your hours before chronometric integration completes. Until then, random temporal displacements may occur around you. Meaning objects, people, or events from other timelines might temporarily manifest in your vicinity. Nothing permanent, but potentially disruptive. Goku nodded, already gathering energy for instant transmission. Is there anything else I should know? Zeno's patterns shifted to what might have been hesitation. The chamber chose you for reasons beyond my calculations. Whatever comes, remember that time is not immutable, it's a medium that can be shaped by sufficient will and understanding. Your species calls it destiny, but it's merely probability expressed across dimensional planes. Right, I'll remember that. Goku placed 2 fingers to his forehead, focusing on Earth. Oh, and Zeno, thanks for not trying to destroy me or anything. Makes a nice change. Before the cosmic entity could respond, Goku activated instant transmission. The journey back should have been instantaneous, but instead stretched into what felt like eternity. He witnessed the birth and death of stars, the collision of galaxies, the slow dance of cosmic evolution played out across billions of years. When reality finally stabilized around him, Goku found himself not on Mount Paozu where he'd started, but hovering above West City, specifically, above Capsule Corporation. Disoriented from the prolonged dimensional transit, he descended toward the familiar domed buildings, his enhanced senses automatically seeking out Bulma's energy signature. He found her in her private laboratory, bent over a workbench. Blue hair tied back haphazardly as she manipulated holographic schematics floating in the air. So focused was she on her work that she didn't notice his arrival until he spoke. "Hey, Bulma," she yelped, nearly dropping the precision tool in her hand. "Goku, how many times have I told you not to just appear like that?" Her momentary irritation melted into concern as she registered his appearance. "What happened to you? You look different." Goku tilted his head. "Different how?" Bulma approached cautiously, scientific curiosity overtaking initial shock. "Your eyes, for one thing. There's some kind of iridescence to them." She reached up, placing a hand against his cheek to examine more closely. "And your skin is slightly luminescent, like there's energy just beneath the surface." Her touch sent unexpected sensations through Goku, not merely physical, but temporal. He could suddenly perceive Bulma's timeline, all the decision points that had shaped her life. All the alternate branches where their paths had intertwined differently. In some, they had remained just friends. In others, he stepped back, overwhelmed by the rush of information. "Goku." Concern deepened in her voice. "What's wrong?" "Something happened during training," he explained, deciding simplified truth was better than technical explanations he barely understood himself. "I found this cosmic thing. It did something to me. Gave me some kind of time powers, I think." Bulma's eyes widened, scientific mind immediately grasping implications he hadn't considered. "Time powers? You mean chronokinesis, temporal manipulation? That should be theoretically impossible without violating fundamental entropy laws unless..." Her voice trailed off as she reached for a scanner on her workbench. "Hold still. I need to check something." The device hummed as she passed it over him, her expression shifting from concern to fascination. "Incredible. You're emitting tachyon particles, theoretical particles that move backward through time. And there are quantum fluctuations around you that shouldn't be possible in normal spacetime." "Is that bad?" Goku asked, struggling to focus. As his new senses continued bombarding him with information from multiple timelines simultaneously. Bad. It's revolutionary. Excitement overcame caution as Bulma circled him, scanner beeping frantically. Do you realize what this means for physics? For our understanding of reality itself? We need to run tests, document everything. I'll need to build specialized equipment to measure chronometric. Her scientific enthusiasm halted as Goku suddenly dropped to one knee, galaxies in his eyes spinning wildly. Goku, what's happening? Too much, he managed through gritted teeth. Too many timelines, can't focus. Bulma dropped her scanner, scientific curiosity immediately replaced by concern for her oldest friend. She knelt beside him, placing both hands on his shoulders. Focus on my voice, Goku. Just this moment, just here and now. Her touch provided unexpected anchor. The cascade of temporal information receded, allowing Goku to center his consciousness in the present reality. He looked up at her, gratitude evident in his expression. Thanks, that helped. What exactly are you experiencing? She asked, voice softer now, the scientist temporarily giving way to the friend. It's like seeing everything at once, all the different ways things could have happened, all the choices, all the possibilities. He stood slowly, steadier now. And something's wrong with time itself. I can feel fractures forming. Timelines that should be stable starting to collapse. Bulma's scientific mind immediately began processing implications. A natural phenomenon, or deliberate interference? Don't know yet, but something big is coming. Goku looked toward the window, sensing disturbances in reality already forming across the planet. I should get to Chi-Chi, explain what's happening before. The air several feet away shimmered, reality folding in on itself as a temporal displacement manifested. Both Goku and Bulma stared as a figure stepped through the distortion, a woman in ornate battle armor. Her face bearing the unmistakable features of Chi-Chi, yet older, harder, bearing scars no present timeline could account for. Finally found you, the alternate Chi-Chi said, eyes locking on Goku. We don't have much time. The Chronos War has already begun. Before either could respond, the temporal anomaly collapsed, the visitor disappearing as suddenly as she had arrived. Silence filled the laboratory as Goku and Bulma exchanged shocked glances. I'm guessing that's the kind of temporal displacement your cosmic friend warned about. Bulma finally asked. Yeah. Goku's expression hardened with determination. I need to get to Mount Paozu. The real Chi-Chi needs to know what's happening. Bulma nodded, already moving toward her computer terminal. All S. Chart analyzing the data from that anomaly. And Goku. Her voice softened with concern. Be careful, if time itself is becoming unstable. I know. He placed a hand on her shoulder, the contact ONC. Again creating that strange temporal resonance between them. I'll come back once I've talked to Chi-Chi. Whatever's happening, we'll face it together. We always do. With that promise, he placed T.O. fingers to his forehead and concentrated on his home at Mount Paozu. This time, the instant transmission felt different, not merely moving through space, but slipping between moments, as though reality itself had become fluid around him. When he rematerialized, he found himself not outside his house as intended, but directly in the small training dojo Chi-Chi had built years ago to maintain her martial arts skills. She moved through ancient forms with fluid grace, each stance flowing into the next with precision born from decades of discipline. Unlike many of the Z fighters, Chi-Chi's Str. Strength came not from raw power but perfect technique, her key control so refined it approached artistry. Watching her, Goku felt a familiar admiration for her dedication, her strength of will, her unwavering spirit. She sensed his presence immediately, completing her form before turning to face him. You're back earlier than usual. Her dark eyes narrowed as she registered the changes in his appearance. Something's happened. It wasn't a question. After years together, she could read him better than anyone, a connection that had weathered gods and demons, death and resurrection, peace and war. Yeah. Goku approached slowly, uncertain how to explain. I encountered something during training. Some kind of cosmic nexus point. It changed me. Chi-Chi set aside her training staff, Crow. SSING the distance between them with measured steps. Unlike Bulma's scientific examination, Chi-Chi's assessment was intuitive, spiritual. She placed a hand over his heart, eyes closing in concentration. Your ki has changed, she said after a moment. Not just stronger, fundamentally different. There are patterns I've never felt before. Her eyes opened, meeting his directly. And your eyes hold stars now. Goku smiled despite himself. Trust Chi-Chi to describe complex quantum phenomena in simple, poetic terms that somehow captured the essence better than scientific explanation. It's some kind of time power, he explained. I can see different timelines, different possibilities. And something's wrong with time itself. Fractures forming, realities bleeding into each other. Chi-Chi absorbed this with remarkable calm. Years of extraordinary events had tempered her reactions to the impossible. Is that why we had a visitor this morning? A man who looked like you, but wasn't you. Goku's eyes widened. What? When? About an hour ago. He appeared in the garden, looked around confused, then disappeared before I could speak to him. Chi-Chi's expression remained composed, but concern tinged her voice. He wore strange armor I've never seen, and his eyes, they held the same stars I see in yours now. Temporal displacements, just as Zeno had warned. And if alternate versio, NS of himself and Chi-Chi were already manifesting, the fractures were spreading faster than anticipated. There's more, Goku said, deciding full disclosure was necessary. At Capsule Corp, I saw another version of you, older. Battle-hardened. She mentioned something called the Chronos War, before disappearing. Chi-Chi absorbed this without visible reaction, though her ki flickered with concealed emotion. So alternate timeline versions of us are appearing randomly. That can't be good. No, Goku agreed. And I think it's just the beginning. I can feel something coming. Something big. Chi-Chi studied him for a long moment before nodding decisively. You need to learn to control these new abilities quickly. And we need to gather everyone, Bulma, Vegeta, Gohan, all the fighters. If time itself is becoming unstable. Her words cut off as the ground beneath them trembled. Outside, the sky darkened unnaturally, clouds forming spiral patterns that defied meteorological explanation. Through the dojo's windows, they could see trees aging and aging randomly, blossoms appearing and withering in seconds, trunks thickening and thinning as time fluctuated around them. It's starting, Goku said grimly. The fractures are spreading. Chi-Chi moved to his side, warrior instincts overriding domestic concerns. What do we do? Before Goku could answer, pain lanced through his skull again, visions flooding his consciousness. A massive being composed of crystalline temporal energy, shattering timeline branches with methodical precision. Cities folding in on themselves as reality collapsed. And at the center of the destruction, a figure cloaked in shadows, manipulating the very fabric of space-time. When the vision faded, Goku found Chi-Chi supporting him, concern etched across her features. I saw something, he gasped. A destroyer of timelines, and someone controlling it all. Chi-Chi's expression hardened with resolve. Then we fight, as always. This isn't like our other battles, Goku warned. We're not just facing a powerful enemy, we're facing the collapse of reality itself. All the more reason to stand against it. Chi-Chi's voice carried absolute conviction. Get us to Capsule Corp. If anyone can make sense of this cosmic phenomenon, it's Bulma. Goku nodded, drawing strength from her unwavering determination. As he placed 2 fingers to his forehead, concentrating on Bulma's key signature, he felt something new, a resonance between Chi-Chi and himself, similar to what he'd experienced with Bulma but distinct in quality. Their Ines were intertwined across multiple realities, connection points glowing like stars in his newfound perception. The instant transmission activated, but again stretched beyond normal parameters. This time, Goku maintained awareness of Chi-Chi beside him, anchoring himself to her presence as they traversed not just space but splinters of alternate timelines. Glimpses of other possibilities flash. Around them, worlds where different choices had led to drastically different outcomes. When reality stabilized, they found themselves in Bulma's laboratory, but not the same one Goku had left minutes earlier. Equipment was more advanced, arrangements different. And Bulma herself looked slightly older, her blue hair shorter, lab coat bearing insignias neither recognized. She looked up from complex holographic displays. Momentary surprise giving way to understanding. Temporal displacement, she said matter-of-factly. You're from an adjacent timeline branch, approximately 3 years divergent based on quantum signatures. Chi-Chi tensed beside Goku. We're in the wrong timeline. Not wrong. This alternate, Bulma corrected, shutting down her displays. Just different. The multiverse. E is experiencing unprecedented instability, temporal boundaries becoming permeable. You don't seem surprised to see us, Goku observed. Alternate Bulma smiled grimly. This is the 17th CR. OS timeline incursion we've documented this week. The Chronos event is accelerating across all reality branches. Chronos event. Chi-Chi echoed. The systematic destruction of timeline integrity by an entity we've designated Chronos. Alternate Bulma activated a new display, showing a crystalline being matching what Goku had glimpsed in his vision. It appears at fracture points and accelerates timeline collapse, converting temporal energy into something we don't fully understand yet. Goku stepped forward, galaxies in his eyes spinning as he recognized the creature. I've seen this in visions. There's someone controlling it, someone in shadows. Alternate Bulma's expression darkened. We've detected a guiding intelligence, yes. In this timeline, we've been developing countermeasures, but with limited success. Our best hope has been. She hesitated, studying Goku with new intensity. You have it already, don't you? The Chronos adaptation. The what? Goku and Chi-Chi asked simultaneously. The integration of chronometric energy into a living vessel. Alternate Bulma approached Goku, scientific fascination evident in her expression. In our timeline, we've been trying to artificially induce it for months. With catastrophic failures. But you've undergone natural integration with the cosmic nexus. How can you tell? Chi-Chi asked. Tachyon emissions, quantum displacement patterns, and the fact that his eyes literally contain galaxies now. Alternate Bulma pointed to monitoring equipment that was already analyzing Goku. This is unprecedented. A fully success. SFUL Chronos adaptation should theoretically grant complete mastery over temporal mechanics. I wouldn't call it mastery, Goku admitted. More like drowning in information I don't understand. You need training. Alternate Bulma agreed. Fortunately, we may have something that can help. She moved to a secure storage unit, activating complex biometric locks. In this timeline, we recovered artifacts from a civilization that existed outside conventional time flow. Their technology operates on principles similar to what's happening to you. The storage unit opened, revealing a bracelet comp. OSED of metal unlike anything Goku had seen, simultaneously ancient and advanced, its surface inscribed with mathematical equations that seemed to shift and change as he watched. A Chronos stabilizer, Alternate Bulma explained. Designed to help beings transitioning into temporal awareness. It won't give you control, but it should prevent sensory overload while you learn to manage the influx of information. Chi-Chi eyed the device skeptically. Are you sure it's safe? Absolutely not, Alternate Bulma admitted with characteristic bluntness. But considering reality itself is collapsing around us, calculated risks seem reasonable. Before further discussion could occur, alarms blared throughout the laboratory. Holographic displays activated automatically, showing multiple energy C.G. natures converging on Capsule Corporation. What's happening? Goku demanded, already sensing the disturbance. Key signatures unlike anything he'd encountered before, resonating with the same temporal energy now flowing through him. Chronos hunters, Alternate Bulma explained, face grim as she handed him the stabilizer bracelet. They track chronometric anomalies, like you. They're this timeline-in's version of me trying to find you before Chronos does. Why would they hunt Goku? Chi-Chi moved protectively closer to him. Because a successfully adapted Chronos vessel is the only thing that might stop the timeline collapse. Alternate Bulma's expression softened with sympathy. And different timeline branches have different ideas about how to utilize such a vessel. Outside, the SKY darkened as reality itself seemed to warp. Through the laboratory windows, they could see figures approaching, humanoid but not quite human, their bodies partially translucent as though not fully materialized in this reality. Put on the stabilizer, Alternate Bulma urged. Then get back to your own timeline. Find your Bulma. She'll figure out how to help you control these abilities. Goku slipped the bracelet onto his wrist. Immediately, the chaotic flood of temporal information receded to manageable levels. His perception remained expanded beyond normal parameters, but no longer threatened to overwhelm his consciousness. What about you? Chi-Chi asked the alternate Bulma. A sad smile crossed the scientist's face. This timeline branch is already compromised. 78% probability of complete collapse within 48 hours. But if you can master the Chronos adaptation in your reality. She let the implication hang unspoken. Understanding dawned in Goku's eyes. If I can control these powers, I might be able to stabilize all the timelines. Precisely. Alternate Bulma moved toward a control panel as the Chronos hunters drew closer. I'll create a distraction. You focus on returning to your exact departure coordinates. Chi-Chi gripped Goku's arm. We can't just leave her. You must, alternate Bulma insisted. Temporal mechanics are brutally unsentimental. Save your timeline, and you may save all timelines, including splinters of this one. Outside, the hunters had reached the perimeter of Capsule Corporation, reality warping around them as they phased through solid matter. Alternate Bulma activated defense systems, buying precious seconds. One more thing, she called as Goku prepared for instant transmission. In every timeline we've analyzed, 3 constants emerge as chronometric anchors, 3 connections that stabilize the Chronos vessel across reality branches. What 3 constants? Goku asked, already suspecting the answer. Alternate Bulma's expression held complex emotions, scientific detachment warring with something more personal. You already know 2 of them. Her gaze flickered between Goku and Chi-Chi. The third, you'll discover soon enough. Quote, with that cryptic statement, she slammed her hand onto a final control, flooding the laboratory with energy that temporarily disrupted the hunters' approach. Go, she commanded. Find your Bulma. Quote, Goku nodded, placing an arm around Chi-Chi and 2 fingers to his forehead. With the stabilizer bracelet managing the flood of temporal information, he could now perceive timeline branches with greater clarity, including the specific vibrational frequency of their origin point. As they phased out of the alternate reality, Goku caught one last glimpse of the other Bulma standing defiant against the approaching hunters, her expression resolute despite the inevitable. Then reality shifted, spacetime bending around them as they traversed the gap between timeline branches. The journey back felt simultaneously instantaneous and eternal, a paradox of temporal physics that Goku was beginning to understand was normal for his new condition. When they rematerialized, they found themselves in their own timeline's version of Bulma's laboratory, where the scientist was frantically analyzing data from their previous departure. She spun toward them as they appeared, relief evident in her expression. There you are. You've been gone for 3 hours. 3 hours. Chi-Chi looked bewildered. It felt like minutes. Time dilation, Bulma explained, already scanning them both with sophisticated equipment. Your quantum signatures show you've experienced temporal displacement. Where did you go? Another timeline, Goku explained, showing her the stabilizer bracelet. A different version of you gave me this to help control the chronometric energy. Bulma's eyes widened as she examined the device. This technology is incredible. Equations I've only theorized about. Implemented in physical form. She looked up at Goku. And it's helping. He nodded. The flood of information is manageable now. I can see timeline branches without being overwhelmed. Good. Because things are getting worse. Bulma gestured to monitoring equipment displaying global anomalies. Temporal disturbances are appearing worldwide. Objects from other timelines manifesting randomly. People reporting encounters with alternate versions of themselves. Just like the other Bulma predicted, Chi-Chi said. She called it the Chronos event, timeline boundaries breaking down. She also mentioned something called Chronos Hunters, Goku added. And an entity designated Chronos that's destroying timelines. Bulma absorbed this information with remarkable composure. Scientific mind already formulating hypotheses. If alternate timeline versions of me are researching this phenomenon, I can probably replicate their findings. Maybe even improve on them. She moved to her main console, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. I've already called everyone, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo, Krillin. They should be arriving soon. If we're facing a threat to reality itself, we'll need all hands on deck. Goku nodded, grateful for Bulma's efficient response to crisis. But even as plans formed, he felt something stirring within him, the cosmic energy-seeking expression. Adaptation still progressing despite the stabilizer's influence. There's something else, he said, drawing both women's attention. The alternate Bulma mentioned, 3 constants, T anchor the Chronos vessel, meaning me, across timelines. What constants? Bulma asked, scientific curiosity evident. Goku's gaze moved between Chi-Chi and Bulma, the implication clear. 2 are already known. The third remains to be discovered. Understanding dawned in Bulma's eyes, followed by a complex mix of emotions she quickly suppressed beneath scientific objectivity. Fascinating. Quantum entanglement across conscious entities, perhaps. Or some form of chronometric resonance between specific energy signatures. Chi-Chi's expression remained composed, but Goku could sense the turbulence in her key, understanding, acceptance, and something more complex that would need addressing when time permitted. Further discussion halted as the building trembled, reality itself seeming to shudder around them. Through the laboratory windows, they could see the sky above West City tearing open, spatial rifts revealing glimpses of other timelines, some peaceful, others consumed by war or destruction. It's starting, Goku said grimly, galaxies spinning in his eyes as he perceived timeline fractures spreading across reality. The barriers between worlds are breaking down. Bulma and Chi-Chi moved to stand beside him. One on each side, scientist and warrior, intellect and spirit, both equally determined to face whatever came next. As if responding to their proximity, the chronometric energy within Goku stabilized further, the 3 of them forming a triangle of resonant frequencies that temporarily calmed the disturbances around Capsule Corporation. Whatever's coming, Chi-Chi said with quiet determination. We face it together. Always, Bulma agreed, scientific detachment giving way to the fierce loyalty that had defined her since childhood adventures. Goku nodded, drawing strength from both women as he prepared to embrace his new role, not just Earth's defender, but protector of time itself. Above them, the sky continued to fracture, timeline branches edding into one another as the Chronos event accelerated. The battle for reality had begun. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Quantum Ripples. The world didn't end with a bang but with silent tears in reality's fabric. Hairline fractures in space-time spread across West City like cracks in ancient pottery, invisible to ordinary humans but blindingly obvious to Goku's newly enhanced perception. Standing atop Capsule Corporation's main dome, he tracked their progress with growing concern, galaxies spinning in his pupils as he processed information from multiple timeline branches simultaneously. 17 major fracture points and counting, he reported, voice echoing strangely as it resonated across dimensional boundaries. Largest concentration in the financial district downtown. Below, in Bulma's hastily assembled crisis center, the gathered Z fighters exchanged worried glances. Only 3 hours had passed since Goku and Chi-Chi had returned from the alternate timeline, but the situation had deteriorated rapidly. Vegeta scowled at the holographic displays showing temporal anomaly clusters across the planet, while Gohan meticulously documented each reported incident. Piccolo stood silently in one corner, deep meditation allowing his heightened Namekian senses to track disturbances in natural energy flows. I still don't understand, Krillin said, examining the chronometric stabilizer bracelet Bulma had duplicated from the alternate timeline technology. If time itself is breaking down, why isn't everyone affected? Why can only Goku see these fractures? Because he's been integrated into universal infrastructure. Bulma explained without looking up from her calculations. The cosmic nexus recognized him as a suitable conduit for chronometric energy. In essence, he's me part of the mechanism that maintains timeline integrity. So my father is what? Time itself now? Gohan asked, scholarly mind struggling with concepts beyond conventional physics. Not exactly. Bulma projected a complex quantum equation into the air. He's more like a living nexus point where multiple timeline branches intersect. A walking, breathing cosmic constant. Chi-Chi, who had been quietly preparing tea in the adjoining kitchenette, brought a steaming cup to Bulma. You need to rest. You've been working non-stop since we returned. Bulma accepted the cup with a grateful smile. The 2 women had maintained remarkable composure despite the revelation about their shared significance as chronometric anchors for Goku's new condition. Whatever complex emotions bubbled beneath his surface remained controlled by the immediate crisis. Time dilation is accelerating, Piccolo announced, opening his eyes. I sense temporal echoes rippling outward from each fracture point. objects shifting between past, present, and future states. As if confirming his assessment, alarms blared across monitoring systems. Bulma rushed to the main console, eyes widening at incoming data. Ma, SSIVE chronometric surge detected in Ginger Town, she announced. Temporal pressure building toward critical threshold. Above them, Goku's body tensed. Through his expanded senses, he felt the disturbance like a wound in reality, a swelling temporal abscess threatening to rupture. I see it, he called down. The entire town is phasing between timeline branches. If the pressure keeps building, total chronometric collapse. Bulma finished grimly. Every person, building, and particle in Ginger Town could be erased from existence, or worse, fragmented across multiple incompatible timelines. Vegeta pushed away from the wall he'd been leaning against. Then we destroy the anomaly before it reaches critical mass. Simple. Not simple at all, Bulma countered. These fractures aren't physical phenomena that can be blasted away. They're fundamental breaks in space-time itself. Then what do you suggest, woman? Vegeta demanded, frustration evident in his tightly controlled voice. Stand by while reality unravels. Before Bulma could respond, Goku appeared beside them, having used instant transmission to return from the rooftop. The air around him shimmered with subtle distortions, chronometric energy causing light itself to bend around his form. I need to go to Ginger Town, he said with quiet determination. Maybe I can stabilize the fracture point. How? Gohan asked. You barely understand these new abilities. I'll figure it out, Goku replied with characteristic confidence. That's what I do. Chi-Chi stepped forward, dark eyes meeting his. Not alone. Whatever's happening, we face it together, remember. Bulma nodded agreement. The alternative timeline version of me mentioned 3 chronometric anchors. If Chi-Chi and I are 2 of them, our presence might help stabilize your abilities. It's too dangerous, Goku protested. We don't know what happens when a temporal fracture collapses. Which is precisely why you need us, Bulma countered, already gathering equipment. I can take measurements, develop countermeasures. And Chi-Chi, she glanced at the other woman with newfound respect. Her key control techniques might help you focus the chronometric energy. Chi-Chi nodded. The warrior who had once fought in the World Martial Arts Tournament visible beneath the domestic facade she'd adopted for years. My father taught me ancient meditation techniques passed down through the Ox Kingdom for generations. Techniques designed to harmonize discordant energies. Vegeta made a dismissive sound. Kakarot doesn't need meditation. He needs to unleash his full power against this threat. That's exactly what he shouldn't do, Piccolo interjected. Unfocused power could accelerate the collapse. This requires precision, not brute force. I'll coordinate from here, Gohan offered. Monitor the fracture patterns, warn you if additional anomalies appear. Goku looked between Bulma and Chi-Chi, sensing the truth in their arguments. More than that, he felt the resonance between them, 3 points of a triangle that somehow stabilized the chaotic chronometric energy flowing through him. All right, he conceded. But at the first sign of danger beyond our control, I'm getting you both out of there. Bulma smiled, already packing specialized equipment into a capsule case. Fair enough. Let me grab the prototype chronometric damping field generator I've been working on. I need 5 minutes to prepare, Chi-Chi added, moving to a clear space in the laboratory. She knelt, assuming a meditation posture Goku recognized from her morning practices. But with subtle differences, hand positions configured to channel energy in specific patterns. As the others prepared, Vegeta approached Goku, voice lowered. This, anchor, business. 3 connections that stabilize your new powers. Goku nodded. That's what the alternate Bulma said. And 2 of these anchors are your wife and mine. It wasn't a question, but Vegeta's tone carried complex implications. Seems that way. Goku met the Saiyan prince's gaze directly. I don't fully understand it myself. Vegeta studied him for a long moment before speaking again. Just remember, Kakarot, regardless of cosmic entanglements or universal infrastructure, certain boundaries remain. Understood. Despite the gravity of the situation, Goku couldn't suppress a smile. Always looking out for family, huh Vegeta? Don't be absurd, the prince scoffed, turning away. I simply prefer that reality doesn't collapse while I'm preparing to finally surpass you. The exchange Interrupted as Bulma returned with her equipment and Chi-Chi completed her meditation. Within minutes, they were ready to depart. Remember, Piccolo cautioned as Goku prepared for instant transmission, observation before action. Understand what you're facing before attempting to manipulate it. Goku nodded, placing one hand on Bulma's shoulder and the other on Chi-Chi's. As they connected, He felt the chronometric energy within him stabilize, flowing in harmonious patterns rather than chaotic surges. With newfound clarity, he focused on Ginger Town's coordinates, perceiving not just its spatial location but its temporal frequency, the unique vibrational signature that distinguished it within the current timeline branch. Hold tight, he murmured. This might feel strange. The instant transmission activated, but with his enhanced perception, Goku could now observe the process itself, how their physical forms converted to energy patterns, traversed subspace corridors that existed between conventional dimensions, and reconstituted at the destination. What normally seemed instantaneous now unfolded as a complex sequence of quantum transitions, each step visible to his chronometrically attuned senses. When reality solidified around them, the three stood at Ginger Town's central plaza, but not the peaceful commercial district it should have been. Buildings phased between different architectural styles as they shifted between timeline branches. Streets extended in impossible directions before snapping back to normal geography. Worst of all, people flickered like faulty holograms, their very existence becoming uncertain as timeline instability increased. My God, Bulma whispered, activating her scanning equipment. The chronometric pressure is off the charts. Multiple timeline branches trying to occupy the same dimensional space simultaneously. Chi-Chi moved closer to a young woman frozen mid-step, her form transparent one moment, solid the next. Can they see us? Feel anything? Time isn't flowing normally for them, Goku explained, instinctively understanding concepts he couldn't have comprehended days earlier. They're experiencing temporal fragmentation, existing across multiple timeline branches simultaneously without conscious awareness. Like Schrödinger's cat, Bulma murmured. Both alive and dead, or in this case, existing in multiple incompatible states until someone observes and collapses the quantum waveform. Can we help them? Chi-Chi asked, practical as always. Goku closed his eyes, extending his senses beyond conventional perception. With the stabilizer bracelet regulating the influx of information, he could now perceive the structure of the temporal fracture itself, a wound in reality's fabric, bleeding chronometric energy as timeline branches that should remain separate attempted to occupy the same dimensional coordinates. The fracture originated there, he said, pointing toward a nondescript office building at the plaza's edge. Something punched through from another timeline branch, creating the initial rupture. Bulma's equipment confirmed his assessment. Massive tachyon emissions from that location. Whatever readed the breach left chronometric residue consistent with deliberate manipulation rather than natural phenomena. You mean someone did this on purpose? Chi-Chi's expression hardened. Appears that way. Bulma adjusted her scanner. And based on these readings, we have less than 30 minutes before critical mass. When that happens, she didn't need to finish. All three understood the stakes, not just for Ginger Town, but potentially for their entire timeline branch. I need to try something, Goku said, moving toward the center of the plaza where temporal distortions appeared strongest. Stand back. Chi-Chi and Bulma retreated several yards, though both remained vigilant. As Goku reached the plaza's center, he removed the stabilizer bracelet, immediately feeling the full force of chronometric energy surge through his system. The flood of temporal information nearly overwhelmed him, countless timeline branches visible simultaneously, probability cascades unfolding in fractal patterns. The quantum mechanics of reality itself laid bare to his perception. Through this chaos, he focused on the techniques Chi-Chi had taught him earlier, ancient Ox Kingdom methods for harmonizing discordant energies. His consciousness expanded, encompassing the entire temporal fracture, feeling its structure as intimately as he might feel his own body. I see it now, he murmured, voice echoing across dimensional boundaries. The timelines are like streams that should flow parallel but have been forced to converge. If I can redirect the flow. He raised his hands, not channeling ki as he would in battle, but manipulating the chronometric energy that now recognized him as a conduit. Golden light suffused with iridescent patterns flowed from his fingertips, weaving into the fabric of spacetime itself. Where conventional matter met this energy, it briefly phased between states, solid to liquid to gas to plasma and back again, as fundamental particles realigned with their proper timeline branch. "It's working," Bulma called, monitoring the process. Chronometric pressure decreasing by 17% and falling. But as Goku separated the converging timeline streams, he encountered resistance, something actively working against him, forcing the branches back together. His brow furrowed with concentration as he pushed harder, chronometric energy flowing through him in ever-increasing amounts. "Something's fighting back," he ground out through clenched teeth. "Something conscious." Chi-Chi moved forward despite the danger, assuming a stance beside him. Without physical contact, she began performing kata forms specifically designed to channel and direct energy. Though she couldn't manipulate chronometric forces directly, her movements created patterns in convent. Ional energy that resonated with Goku's efforts, amplifying his control. "Use the opposition's force against itself," she instructed, voice calm despite the reality warping around them. Like water flowing around stone. "Don't push, redirect." Goku adjusted his approach, no longer fighting the resistance directly but subtly altering its direction, channeling the opposing force into constructive rather than destructive patterns. The technique worked, temporal pressure decreasing further as timeline branches began separating naturally. "That's it," Bulma called, excitement evident despite the danger. Chronometric pressure down 53% and falling. "Keep going." As the temporal fracture began closing, Goku perceived something unexpected, a consciousness observing from beyond conventional dimensions. Studying his techniques with cold calculation. Not the force actively resisting him, but something else, something older, patient, watching from between moments. Before he could focus on this presence, the final resistance against his efforts suddenly vanished. Timeline branches separated completely, reality stabilizing as each event and object settled into its proper dimensional frequency. Around them, Ginger Town's citizens resumed normal movement, unaware of their brush with non-existence. Goku staggered as the chronometric energy flow subsided, quickly slipping the stabilizer bracelet back onto his wrist. Chi-Chi was at his side instantly, supporting him as his legs threatened to buckle. "You did it," she said softly, pride evident in her voice. "We did it," he corrected, managing a tired smile. "Your techniques made the difference." Bulma joined them, scanner still active as she documented the aftermath. "Fascinating." The chronometric energy responded to Tr. Additional key manipulation methods when properly adapted. This could be crucial for developing control protocols. Despite her scientific detachment, relief shone clearly in her eyes. She reached out, briefly squeezing Goku's arm in a gesture that communicated more than words could. "We should return to Capsule Corp," Chi-Chi suggested, noting Goku's exhaustion. "You need to recover your strength." He nodded agreement, but his expression remained troubled. There was something else here. A presence watching from outside normal spacetime. Studying us, studying me. Bulma's scientific curiosity immediately engaged. Sentient observation from beyond our dimensional framework. That aligns with theoretical models of higher dimensional entities. Whatever it was, it's gone now, Goku said, placing his fingers to his forehead. "Let's head back. We need to tell the others what happened." As they prepared for instant transmission, none noticed the subtle distortion forming in the air sever. Yards away, a ripple in reality through which cold, calculating eyes observed their departure. When they vanished, the distortion collapsed, leaving no trace of its existence. Capsule Corporate. Ion's crisis center erupted in cautious celebration when Goku, Bulma, and Chi-Chi materialized with news of their success. Gohan immediately embraced his father while Krillin clapped him on the back. Even Vegeta acknowledged the achievement with a grudging nod. "The readings from Ginger Town are clear," Gohan reported, displaying holographic data. "Complete chronometric stabilization. Whatever you did worked perfectly." "Not perfectly," Piccolo countered, ever the pragmatist. "This was one fracture point among dozens worldwide. And more are forming every hour." Bulma moved to her main console, uploading data from her portable equipment. "True, but what we learned is invaluable. Goku successfully manipulated chronometric energy to separate timeline branches. With proper training and support, he could potentially stabilize other fracture points using the same techniques. And nearly collapsed from the effort, Chi-Chi reminded them, guiding Goku to a chair. He can't possibly handle every fracture personally. Goku smiled reassuringly despite his evident fatigue. I'll get stronger. I always do. Besides, Bulma added, now that I understand the mechanics better, I can refine the stabilizer bracelet. Maybe develop portable chronometric dampening field generators for smaller fractures. As the group discussed strategies, Goku's attention drifted inward. The chronometric energy flowing through him had settled into more organized patterns after his efforts in Ginger Town, as though the experience had accelerated his adaptation process. With careful concentration, he LD now perceive individual timeline branches without removing the stabilizer bracelet, including subtle variations between closely related probability tracks. What troubled him most, however, was the watching presence he'd sensed, a consciousness existing outside conventional dimensions, observing with clinical detachment. Something ancient and patient, viewing their struggle against temporal cola. PSE as one might view an interesting experiment. His contemplation was interrupted as a temporal distortion formed in the center of the laboratory, reality folding inward as something pushed through from another timeline branch. Everyone tensed, fighters instinctively assuming battle stances as the distortion stabilized into a glowing portal. Through this opening stepped a woman none of them recognized, tall and athletic, with short silver hair and eyes that shifted between colors like oil on water. Her clothing resembled battle armor but composed of materials that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Flowing like liquid one moment, hard as diamond the next. Chrono's vessel, she addressed Goku directly, ignoring the others. Your intervention at coordinates designate, Ginger Town, has been noted and catalogued. Vegeta stepped forward aggressively. Who the hell are you? The woman's gaze flicked briefly toward him before dismissing him as irrelevant. I am Observer Thera, Timeline Integrity Commission. 7th Recursion. I exist to document significant chronometric events. Another being from outside conventional reality, Bulma murmured, scanner already analyzing the visitor. Like the entity you encountered at the Cosmic Nexus, Goku. Not precisely, Thera corrected. Xeno exists beyond dimensional constraints. The Commission operates within the multiverse framework, monitoring timeline branches for significant deviations. Goku stood, fatigue temporarily forgotten as he studied the observer. You knew about the fracture in Ginger Town. Why didn't you intervene? Intervention is not our function. Thera's voice remained clinically detached. We observe, document, and analyze. Direct manipulation of timeline events falls outside our operational parameters. So you just watch while reality collapses. Chi-Chi's voice carried barely controlled anger. While innocent people face erasure from existence. Something resembling emotion briefly crossed Thera's face, perhaps regret. Quickly suppressed. The Commission's directive prioritizes documentation of the Chronos event. Its progression across the multiverse represents unprecedented data-gathering opportunity. The Chronos event, Goku repeated. The systematic destruction of timeline integrity by an entity designated Chronos. That's what the alternate Bulma called it. Thera's ifting eyes fixed on him with new intensity. You've encountered a variant timeline branch already. Interesting. Your adaptation progresses more rapidly than predicted. Predicted by whom? Bulma demanded, moving to stand beside Goku. Higher recursion analysts. Thera's gaze moved between Goku, Bulma, and Chi-Chi, noting their positioning with apparent interest. The triad configuration is already stabilizing. Another deviation from standard models. Before anyone could question this cryptic statement, temporal energy flared around the observer. Initial contact protocol complete. Future interaction probability 97.8%. Until recursion, Chronos vessel. With those words, she stepped backward into the portal, which collapsed behind her, leaving the group staring at empty space. Well, Krillin broke the stunned silence. That was informative. Piccolo finished. We now know there are organized entities aware of the temporal crisis, yet choosing not to intervene. Worse than that, Gohan added grimly, this commission seems to view the collapse of timelines as some kind of scientific opportunity. Chi-Chi's expression hardened. They're just going to watch while reality unravels. Document our destruction like some cosmic nature documentary. Not if I have anything to say about it, Goku stated with quiet determination. Despite his fatigue, he stood straighter. Galaxies spinning in his pupils as chronometric energy responded to his resolve. If these observers won't help, we'll find another way. The alternate Bulma mentioned countermeasures. Bulma reminded them. Already turning back to her equipment. If a version of me in another timeline was developing technology to combat this Chronos event, I can do the same, maybe better. Vegeta snorted. Technology is well and good, but power will determine the outcome, as always. Kakarot needs to master these new abilities quickly. For once, I agree with Vegeta, Piccolo said. Goku, you need structured training to control chronometric energy manipulation. Chi-Chi nodded thoughtfully. The Ox Kingdom archives contain ancient texts on energy harmonization. Some technique, UES might be adaptable to these new powers. As the group discussed training methods, Goku felt the chronometric energy within him resonating with something distant yet approaching, a disturbance in spacetime unlike the fracture points they'd observed so far. Something massive was moving through the multiverse, its passage creating ripples across timeline branches. Something's coming, he announced, interrupting the conversation. Something big. Everyone tensed, following his gaze toward the laboratory windows where the sky above West City had taken on unnatural coloration, swirling pattern. Of energy visible only to those with enhanced perception. What is it? Gohan asked, unable to sense what his father perceived. I'm not sure, Goku admitted. But whatever it is, it's moving between timelines. Heading toward our reality branch. Bulma's monitoring equipment confirmed his assessment, alarms blaring as sensors detected massive chronometric disturbances approaching Earth's dimensional coordinates. Multiple breaches forming in upper atmosphere, she reported, voice clinical despite evident concern. Whatever's coming is big enough to punch through reality itself. How long do we have? Piccolo demanded. Bulma checked calculations, expression grim. Based on approach vector and chronometric displacement patterns, less than 24 hours. Krillin laughed nervously. So, business as usual then. World-ending threat, impossible odds, last-minute power-ups. Despite the gravity of the situation, several fighters smiled at the familiar pattern. They had faced gods and demons, universal destroyers and cosmic entities, and somehow always found a way to prevail. We need to prepare, Goku said, decision made. Bulma, focus on developing technology to monitor and potentially stabilize chronometric disturbances. Gohan, research everything you can find about temporal mechanics and multiversal theory, scientific and mythological. His son nodded. Scholars MIND already organizing research approaches. Piccolo, Vegeta, Krillin, prepare defense strategies assuming conventional combat might be necessary. Whatever's coming could have physical form once it breaches our timeline. The fighters acknowledged their assignments, Vegeta looking almost pleased at the prospect of battle. Chi-Chi, Goku continued, turning to his wife, I need you to teach me those Ox Kingdom techniques. If I'm going to control these chronometric abilities effectively, I need your knowledge. She nodded, determination evident in her posture. I'll contact my father immediately. Some of the older texts might require his translation. And what will you be doing? Bulma asked Goku, already gathering equipment for her assigned task. Learning, he replied simply. Starting with this, he raised his wrist, examining the stabilizer bracelet. I need to understand how it works if I'm going to move beyond it. And there's something else. His voice trailed off as his gaze turned inward, focusing on the chronometric energy flowing through his system. Now that he knew what to look for, he could sense subtle patterns within the energy itself, information encoded in its quantum structure, accessible to his adapted consciousness. The cosmic nexus didn't just give me power, he said slowly, understanding dawning. It gave me knowledge, understanding of temporal mechanics buried in my subconscious. I need to access it. Meditation might help, Chi-Chi suggested. Deep trance states can bridge conscious and subconscious awareness. Good idea, Goku agreed. But I'll need somewhere quiet, away from temporal disturbances. The hyperbolic time chamber, Piccolo suggested immediately. Its pocket dimension exists partially outside normal spacetime. You could Potentially access these subconscious memories without external interference. Goku nodded gratefully. Perfect. I'll head to the lookout after we finish planning here. As the group dispersed to their assigned tasks, Bulma drew Goku aside, voice lowered for privacy. There's something we need to discuss before you go. About this. Anchor. Business. He glanced toward Chi-Chi, who was already on her phone contacting the Ox King. I know. It's complicated. Complicated doesn't begin to cover it, Bulma replied, though her tone held no accusation. According to that observer, we form some kind of triad configuration that stabilizes your chronometric adaptation. What exactly does that mean for? She hesitated, unwilling to directly address the personal implications. I don't know, Goku admitted. But when I'm near both of you, the chronometric energy flows more harmoniously. It's like, he searched for words to explain concepts he felt rather than understood. Like 3 points, creating a stable plane in three-dimensional space. Bulma's scientific mind immediately grasped the geometric analogy. A minimum viable stabilization framework. 3 points determine a plane, establishing fundamental spatial orientation. Exactly. But it's more than just proximity, Goku continued. It's something about our specific connections, our histories together, shared experiences across multiple timeline branches. Our relationships, Bulma clarified, addressing directly what Goku had approached obliquely. He nodded, expression serious. In every timeline branch I've glimpsed, those connections exist in some form, different in details but constant in essence. Bulma processed this, brilliant mind analyzing implications from multiple angles. So what happens now? Do we just accept that cosmic forces have determined we three are somehow connected in ways that transcend conventional relationships? I don't think the cosmos cares much about social conventions, Goku observed with unexpected insight. It's about energy patterns, resonance frequencies, quantum entanglement across timeline branches. A small smile touched Bulma's lips. Listen to you. Quantum entanglement and resonance frequencies. Your new cosmic awareness is expanding your vocabulary. Goku returned the smile sheepishly. Don't get used to it. Half the time I don't even understand what I'm saying until after I've said it. Their moment of levity was interrupted as Chi-Chi approached, having finished her call. My father is searching the royal archives for the oldest texts on energy harmonization. He'll bring what he finds directly to the lookout. She looked between them, noting their proximity and serious expressions. Did I interrupt something important? Just discussing anchor mechanics, Bulma said smoothly. The chronometric stabilization effect seems to strengthen when all three of us are in proximity. Chi-Chi nodded, accepting the explanation without comment, though her perceptive gaze suggested she understood more than was being explicitly stated. Then perhaps we should all go to the lookout. If Goku needs to access subconscious knowledge through meditation, both anchors present might facilitate the process. Good idea, Goku agreed, relieved by her practical approach to their unusual situation. Bulma, can you bring portable monitoring equipment? If we learn anything useful about chronometric energy manipulation, we should document it. Already packed, she confirmed, patting a capsule case at her hip. I've also prepared prototype chronometric dampening field generators based on data from Ginger Town. If we can understand how you manipulated the energy there, we might be able to replicate the effect technologically. As they prepared to depart for the lookout, Vegeta approached, expression unreadable. A word, Kakarot. Goku nodded to Bulma and Chi-Chi. I'll meet you outside. When they were alone, Vegeta spoke directly as always. This triad configuration, the observer mentioned. It confirms what we discussed earlier. It does, Goku acknowledged. Remember what I said about boundaries, Vegeta continued, voice low but intense. Whatever cosmic entanglement exists between you three, certain principles remain inviolable. Goku met his gaze steadily. I understand, Vegeta, but this goes beyond conventional relationships. It's about the stability of reality itself. Reality can go to hell, the Saiyan prince replied bluntly. Honor comes first. Before Goku could respond, alarms blared across monitoring systems. Bulma rushed back inside, checking readings with growing concern. Massive chronometric disturbance detected in East City, she announced. Similar pattern to Ginger Town but exponentially larger. And it's growing. Goku immediately placed his fingers to his forehead, extending his senses toward the disturbance. What he perceived sent cold dread through his system, not merely a fracture between timeline branches, but a deliberate tear in reality's fabric. Something was forcing its way through from another dimensional plane entirely. Change of plans, he announced grimly. The hyperbolic time chamber will have to wait. Whatever's approaching just sent an advance force. What kind of advance force? Gohan asked, already powering up. Goku's expression hardened, galaxies spinning rapidly in his pupils as chronometric energy responded to his rising tension. The kind that tears holes between dimensions. We need to go, now. East City's financial district had transformed into nightmare landscape when they arrived. Buildings stretched impossibly toward the sky before snapping back to normal proportions. Streets extended in non-Euclidean geometries, connecting points that should remain separate. Worst of all, a massive crystalline structure had materialized in the central plaza, a geometrically perfect dodecahedron that pulsed with energies Goku recognized as chronometric in nature. That's not a natural formation, Bulma stated, scanner already analyzing the structure. It's technology, incredibly advanced technology specifically designed to manipulate spacetime. Vegeta, who had insisted on accompanying them despite Goku's concerns, scowled at the crystal construct. Whatever it is, we destroy it before it causes more damage. Wait, Piccolo cautioned, having also joined the response team. Look, around the dodecahedron, reality itself seemed to warp and fold. Transparent figures phased in and out of existence, humanoid but clearly not human, their bodies composed of crystalline structures similar to the central construct. They moved with mechanical precision, adjusting components of the larger structure that remained invisible until directly manipulated. They exist slightly out of phase with our timeline branch, Goku explained, perceiving what others could only glimpse. They're building something, a bridge between dimensional planes. A beachhead, Piccolo translated grimly. Preparing for the arrival of something larger. Chi-Chi, who had refused to remain behind despite obvious dangers, studied the crystalline entities with narrowed eyes. Can they see us? I don't think so, Goku replied. They're focused on their task, unaware of our timeline except as construction material. Like carpenter ants building on our foundation, Bulma elaborated. Scientific mind immediately grasping the concept. They're using our reality as substrate for their dimensional bridge. Which means they can be exterminated, Vegeta stated coldly, gathering energy for an attack. No, Goku moved with impossible speed, grabbing Vegeta's arm before he could launch his assault. Conventional energy attacks could destabilize the chronometric field further. We need precision, not power. The Saiyan prince snarled but lowered his hand. Then what do you suggest, Kakarot? Stand by while these creatures tear apart our reality. Not standing by, Goku replied, removing the stabilizer bracelet, intervening properly. As the bracelet came off, chronometric energy surged through his system, but unlike previous instances, he maintained control. Channeling the power with newfound precision. His body began to glow with golden light suffused with iridescent patterns, reality bending subtly around him as he aligned his vibrational frequency with the phase-shifted entities. What is he doing? Piccolo asked, unable to fully perceive the dimensional mechanics at work. Shifting his quantum state to match theirs, Bulma explained, scanner recording the process. Making himself visible and tangible to them without fully leaving our timeline branch. Chi-Chi stepped forward, concern evident in her expression. Goku, be careful, you don't know how they'll react. He nodded acknowledgement before completing the phase shift. To the others, he now appeared semi-transparent, existing in a state between their reality and whatever dimensional plane the crystalline entities occupied. The effect was immediate. The entities froze in their activities, geometric heads turning in perfect unison to focus on Goku. Communication passed between T.H.M., not sound or telepathy but patterns of light pulsing through their crystalline forms. Anomaly detected. They transmitted in harmonic frequencies Goku could somehow understand. Hybrid entity manifesting across dimensional boundaries. Classification. Unknown. Threat assessment. Calculating. Goku raised his hands in universal gesture of peace. I am Goku of Earth. You're causing damage to our reality. Why are you here? The entities continued their light pattern communication among themselves before one stepped forward, larger than the others, its crystalline structure more complex. Designation: Earth. Catalog. Dimensional coordinates noted. The entity's communication bypassed conventional language, concepts forming directly in Goku's mind. Purpose: establish transition aperture for Chronos manifestation. Your reality branch designated as primary convergence point. Convergence point for what? Goku pressed, maintaining his partial phase state with increasing effort. The unmaking, came the simple response. All divergent timeline branches must be reintegrated. Probability fragmentation has reached critical threshold. Chronos approaches to implement universal recursion protocol. Cold understanding flooded Goku's consciousness. You're preparing for the arrival of Chronos, the entity destroying timelines. Incorrect terminology. Not destruction. Reclamation. Divergent probability tracks return to primary timeline trunk. Cosmic efficiency restored. While maintaining the conversation, Goku carefully assessed the dodecahedron structure. Through his chronometrically enhanced perception, he could now see its true purpose, a dimensional anchor point designed to stabilize reality enough for something massive to transition between timeline branches. And if we refuse this reclamation? He asked, buying time as he analyzed the construct's energy patterns. The crystalline entity's lights pulsed in what might have been confusion. Refusal irrelevant. SMIC architecture requires reintegration. Divergent branches create unsustainable probability load. There must be alternatives, Goku argued. Ways to stabilize timeline branches without erasing them completely. Alternatives considered and rejected by primary consciousness. Chronos implementation designated optimal solution. The entity's lights intensified, focusing more directly on Goku. Quote, anomaly reassessment. You possess chronometric integration. Designation updated. Potential impediment to Chronos manifestation. The shift in the entity's posture was subtle but unmistakable. Threat assessment had clearly changed. And not in Goku's favor. Countermeasures required. The entity transmitted as all the crystalline beings suddenly oriented toward Goku. Eliminating chronometric anomaly. They moved with perfect coordination, crystalline forms reconfiguring into weapon-like appendages that gathered energy unlike anything Goku had encountered. Not ki or magic, but concentrated CHR. Onometric force designed to erase targets from the timeline itself. Understanding the nature of their attack, Goku dropped his phase shift, snapping fully back into his home timeline branch just as multiple chronometric energy beams converged on his previous position. They're hostile, he reported, rejoining the others. They're building a gateway for something called Chronos to enter our timeline. In and reclaim it, basically erasing our reality by folding it back into some primary timeline trunk. Can we destroy the gateway? Vegeta demanded, eager for action. Goku shook his head. Not with conventional attacks. It exists partially outside our dimensional plane. But maybe. An idea formed as he recalled his experience in Ginger Town, how he'd manipulated chronometric energy to separate converging timeline branches. If he could apply similar principles here, perhaps he could disrupt the dimensional anchor point enough to collapse the gateway before it fully stabilized. I need to try something, he told the others. But it's risky. The backlash could create a temporal shock wave. What do you need from us? Chi-Chi asked, practicality overriding concern. Bulma, deploy chronometric dampening field generators around the plaza perimeter. They won't stop what's coming, but they might contain the backlash. She nodded, immediately unpacking the prototype devices from her capsule case. Chi-Chi, I need you to perform the celestial harmony kata, the one your father taught you for aligning discordant energies. It helped in Ginger Town. It might help here. Of course, she agreed, moving to a clear space where she could execute the complex movements unimpeded. Vegeta, Piccolo, if this works, those crystalline entities will fully materialize in our timeline. They'll be vulnerable then, but extremely dangerous. Be ready. Both warriors nodded grimly, moving into position around the plaza. As everyone prepared, Goku approached the dodecahedron, chronometry. See energy swirling around him in visible patterns. The crystalline entities, perceiving his return, immediately oriented toward him, but remained unable to fully interact with his timeline branch without completing their dimensional bridge. Goku closed his eyes, extending his senses beyond conventional perception. The dodecahedron's true nature became clear, a quantum calculator of incredible complexity. Designed to solve dimensional transition equations necessary for Chronos to breach the barriers between realities. Rather than attacking the structure directly, Goku focused on the calculations themselves, introducing subtle errors into the quantum mathematics, creating unsolvable paradoxes within the dimensional coordinates. It was like corrupting computer code, but at a level where mathematics and reality became indistinguishable. Around him, Chi-Chi's Kata created patterns in conventional energy that resonated with his efforts, providing structure to his otherwise chaotic manipulations. At the plaza perimeter, Bulma's dampening field generators hummed to life, creating a containment barrier for chronometric energy. The crystalline entities detected his interference immediately, light patterns flashing in alarm as they attempted to correct the mathematical errors he introduced. But Goku worked faster, chronometric energy flowing through him in ever-increasing amounts as he corrupted equation after equation. "It's working," Bulma called, monitoring the process. "The dimensional bridge is destabilizing." Indeed, the dodecahedron's perfect geometric form had begun to waver, facets shifting asynchronously as calculation errors compounded. The crystalline entities moved with increasing urgency, attempting to maintain the structure's integrity against Goku's sabotage. As the dimensional bridge approached critical failure, something unexpected happened. The air above the plaza tore open, not a controlled aperture as the entities had planned, but a jagged wound in reality itself. Through this breach emerged a massive crystalline appendage, dwarfing the smaller entities below. "Something's forcing its way through," Piccolo shouted over the rising temporal distortion. "The gateway isn't ready, but it's coming anyway." Goku felt it, a consciousness vast beyond comprehension, ancient and coldly logical, pushing against the dimensional barriers with inexorable force. Chronos hadn't waited for its advance team to complete the bridge, it was creating its own passage through sheer power. "Everyone back," Goku commanded, pouring more energy into disrupting the transition equations. "The dimensional breach is becoming unstable." The appendage, resembling a massive crystalline tentacle, probed the edges of reality around the breach, testing resistances and identifying weak points. Where it touched buildings or streets, they instantly phased out of existence, not destroyed but removed from the timeline completely, as though they had never been. "Fall back to the dampening field perimeter," Bulma called, frantically adjusting her equipment to contain the escalating chronometric disturbance. Vegeta and Piccolo retreated as ordered, though both clearly resented abandoning direct confrontation. Chi-Chi completed her kata before joining them, moving to Bulma's side to help stabilize the perimeter equipment. Only Goku remained near the destabilizing gateway, continuing his mathematical sabotage despite the massive entity now partially breaching their reality. The crystalline appendage sensed his presence, turning toward him with terrible purpose. "Chronometric anomaly identified," came a thought voice vast enough to fill the universe. "Divergent implementation protocol, unauthorized manipulation of cosmic architecture." The appendage lunged toward Goku with impossible speed, intending to remove him from the timeline as it had the surrounding structures. But instead of dodging, Goku stood his ground, gathering chronometric energy until his form glowed like a miniature sun. When the crystalline tentacle made contact, Goku grabbed it with both hands, not physically, but chronometrically, establishing quantum entanglement between his RGY signature and the entity's dimensional frequency. For a brief, terrible moment, his consciousness touched something ancient beyond comprehension, a being that had witnessed the birth and death of countless universes. In that contact, knowledge transferred, not intentionally, but inevitably as their chronometric fields interpenetrated. Goku glimpsed Chronos' true purpose, the cosmic necessity it believed it served. The cold calculation that had determined countless realities must be sacrificed for the greater stability of the multiverse. And Chronos, in turn, perceived something it had anticipated, a being integrated into universal infrastructure not by design but by chance, possessing flexibility and adaptability its own rigid consciousness could not comprehend. The contact lasted less than a second before Goku channeled every ounce of chronometric energy at his command into a single, devastating counterstroke, not attacking the entity directly, but completing the corruption the dimensional transition equations his sabotage had begun. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The dodecahedron shattered into countless fragments, each vanishing from the timeline branch. As the mathematical framework sustaining their existence collapsed, the dimensional breach began to close, reality asserting its natural resistance to cross-dimensional intrusion. Kronos' appendage, caught in a transition state between realities, began phasing in and out of existence as dimensional coordinates shifted unpredictably. With a final surge of effort, the entity withdrew its manifestation, retreating through the collapsing breach rather than risk being trapped in an unstable dimensional state. As the breach sealed itself, a temporal shock wave erupted from the convergence point. A spherical wave of chronometric energy that would have erased everything it touched from the timeline had it not encountered Bulma's dampening field generators. The barriers strained against the onslaught, equipment smoking as it absorbed energies it was never designed to contain. "They're overloading," Bulma shouted, frantically adjusting controls. "The containment field can't hold much longer." Goku, exhausted from his confrontation with Kronos, summoned his remaining strength for one final effort. Rather than fighting the temporal shock wave directly, he synchronized with its frequency, guiding rather than opposing its expansion. Like a martial artist redirecting an opponent's attack, he channeled the chronometric energy upward, away from the city and into the upper atmosphere where it could dissipate harmlessly across the planet's magnetosphere. The maneuver worked, temporal energies following his guidance as they swept skyward in a spectacular aurora visible worldwide. For several minutes, Earth's atmosphere displayed impossible colors as chronometric particles interacted with conventional matter before finally stabilizing. When the last energies dissipated, Goku collapsed to his knees, completely drained. Chi-Chi and Bulma rushed to his side, supporting him as the others secured the area. "Did we win?" he managed through ragged breathing. Bulma checked her scanner, expression concerned despite their apparent victory. "The immediate threat is neutralized. The gateway is destroyed, the crystalline entities gone. But Kronos itself retreated rather than being defeated," Piccolo observed. "Joining them. And based on what you've told us, it still intends to reclaim our timeline branch." Chi-Chi helped Goku to his feet, concern evident in her expression. "Can you make it back to Capsule Corp? You need rest and medical attention." He nodded weakly, leaning on her more heavily than he would normally allow himself. "I'll be fine. Just need to recover my strength." As they prepared to depart, Vegeta approached, unusual concern briefly visible beneath his customary scowl. "What exactly happened when you touched that thing, Kakarot? Your power signature changed." Goku met his rival's gaze, understanding the deeper question. "I saw its purpose, the cosmic calculation that convinced it timeline branches like ours need to be erased for the greater stability of the multiverse." "And," Piccolo prompted, sensing there was more. "And it saw me," Goku continued, voice grave despite his exhaustion. "It recognized what I've become, a potential threat to its mission. It'll be back, and it won't underestimate me again." "Meaning what, exactly?" Bulma asked. "Meaning we just made the biggest, oldest, most powerful entity in the multiverse adjust its plans." Despite everything, a small smile touched Goku's lips. "We got its attention." "Wonderful," Vegeta muttered sarcastically. "Because attracting the notice of cosmic horrors has worked so well for us in the past." Despite the gravity of the situation, several of them chuckled at the Saiyan prince's dry observation. They had indeed developed an unfortunate habit of drawing the attention of increasingly powerful beings, from Frieza to Cell to Majin Buu to gods of destruction and now, apparently, the cosmic architect of timeline integrity itself. "We should return to Capsule Corp," Bulma suggested, already packing her equipment. "I need to analyze the data from this encounter, especially the readings I got from the dimensional breach. If Kronos is coming back, we need to understand exactly what we're facing." As they gathered for instant transmission back to West City, Goku noticed something odd about the plaza where the confrontation had occurred. Though the dimensional breach had closed and the crystalline entities vanished, the area remained subtly altered, conventional physics behaving slightly differently, light bending at impossible angles, time flowing at microscopical different rates than surrounding areas. "This place is permanently changed," he observed quietly. "The fabric of reality itself has been stretched and never quite returned to its original shape." "A scar in space-time," Bulma agreed, scanner confirming his assessment. "The dimensional breach may have healed, but it left a mark, a weak point where barriers between realities remain thinner than normal. Could Kronos use that to return more easily? Chi-Chi asked, grasping the implications immediately. Possibly, Goku acknowledged, but it works both ways. We might also use it to better understand the nature of dimensional transitions. Bulma's eyes lit with scientific curiosity despite their exhaustion. You're right. This could be invaluable for research, a natural laboratory for studying cross-dimensional physics. Study later, Vegeta interrupted impatiently. Recover now. Kakarot can barely stand, and we need him at full strength when this Kronos returns. For once, no on. Argued with the Saiyan Prince's assessment. With Goku still supported between Chi-Chi and Bulma, the group gathered close for instant transmission back to Capsule Corporation. As Goku concentrated on the familiar coordinates, he felt something unexpected, a new depth to his perception of spatial relationships, as though his brief contact with Kronos had accelerated his adaptation to chronometric energy. Dimensional transitions that had previously seemed mysterious now followed comprehensible patterns, the mathematics of spacetime folding becoming intuitively clear. The instant transmission activated, but rather than the stretched sensation of previous attempts, the transition occurred with perfect precision, reality shifting around them with surgical exactitude as they rematerialized in Capsule Corporation's main laboratory. That was different, Chi-Chi observed, noticing the smoother transition. Goku nodded, understanding dawning despite his exhaustion. I'm learning. Every encounter with chronometric forces teaches me more about how to control them. Accelerated adaptation, Bulma theorized, helping him to a recovery bed she'd prepared earlier. Your Saiyan physiology combined with the cosmic nexus integration allows you to evolve your abilities through practical application rather than formal training. Learning by doing, Goku simplified with a tired smile. My favorite method. As medical equipment monitored his condition, the others gathered to discuss next steps. Despite their apparent victory in East City, no one harbored illusions that the crisis had passed. Kronos had merely withdrawn temporarily, likely to reassess its approach to a reality branch that had shown unexpected resistance. We bought time, nothing more, Piccolo stated bluntly. Based on Goku's description, this entity exists beyond conventional dimensional constraints. It can attempt breaches anywhere, anytime. Then we need to be ready everywhere, Gohan concluded, having joined them upon their return. Global monitoring network, rapid response protocols, and continued development of chronometric countermeasures, Bulma added, already reviewing data from the East City encounter. My dampening field generators worked better than expected, but they were never designed to contain that level of temporal energy. We need something more robust. As the discussion continued, Chi-Chi remained beside Goku's recovery bed, monitoring his condition with the experienced eye of someone who had nursed a Saiyan warrior through countless injuries. She noticed something the medic equipment missed. Subtle changes in his ki flow, new patterns emerging as chronometric energy integrated more deeply with his life force. You're still changing, she observed quietly, placing a hand over his heart to better sense the energy patterns. The adaptation is continuing even while you rest. Goku nodded, having felt the ongoing transformation himself. It's accelerating after contact with Kronos. Like my system recognized something familiar in its chronometric signature and is adjusting to match frequency. Chi-Chi's expression remained carefully neutral, but concern shone in her eyes. Are you becoming more like it? This ancient entity that wants to erase our reality? No, Goku replied with absolute certainty. We share energy types, not purpose. Kronos exists to maintain cosmic order through rigid adherence to some predetermined architecture. I exist to protect what matters: people, relationships, the freedom to choose our own paths. The conviction in his voice reassured her, some tension leaving her shoulders as she adjusted his recovery blanket. Good, because I prefer my husband Saiyan, not cosmic horror. The unexpected humor brought a genuine smile to his face. Don't worry, no matter what cosmic powers I develop, I'll always be the same Goku who can't remember anniversary dates and leaves his training clothes on the bathroom floor. How comforting, she replied dryly, though affection warmed her voice. Their moment was interrupted as Bulma approached, tablet in hand displaying complex equations. Sorry to disturb your rest, but I've been analyzing the chronometric energy signatures from East City, and something doesn't add up. What do you mean? Goku asked, pushing himself to a sitting position despite Chi-Chi's disapproving frown. The dimensional breach wasn't just a gateway for Chronos to enter our reality, Bulma explained, showing them energy distribution graphs. It was also designed to extract something, to take something from our timeline branch back to wherever Chronos exists. What could it possibly want from our reality? Chi-Chi wondered. From what Goku described, this entity sees our entire timeline as just excess probability that needs reclaiming. Quote, Bulma's expression grew troubled. That's what I can't figure out. The extraction parameters were highly specific, targeting something with unique quantum signature. Something that shouldn't exist in our timeline branch at all. Goku's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Or someone who's been integrated into universal infrastructure recently. Exactly, Bulma confirmed grimly. The extraction matrix was calibrated to your specific chronometric signature, Goku. Chronos wasn't just trying to enter our reality, it was trying to remove you from it. Chi-Chi's hand tightened on Goku's arm. Why would it target you specifically? Unless I represent a greater threat than we realized, Goku finished the thought. My adaptation to Chronom. Trick energy must interfere with its plans somehow. Which means you're not just our best defense, Bulma concluded. You're potentially our only defense, the one thing in our timeline branch that Chr. Onos considers important enough to extract rather than simply erase along with everything else. The implications hung heavy in the air. Whatever cosmic calculation had determined their reality required reclamation. Goku's transformed existence represented an unexpected variable, a potential counterforce to Chronos' seemingly inevitable purpose. We need to accelerate your training, Chi-Chi decided, practicality overriding concern. If you're our best hope against this entity, you need to master these new abilities as quickly as possible. Goku nodded agreement, already feeling strength returning as his Saiyan physiology recovered from the chronometric exertion. The hyperbolic time chamber. 1 day outside equals a year inside. With both of you there to stabilize the chronometric energy, I could potentially make decades of progress. Both of us? Bulma questioned, though she'd clearly followed his reasoning. The chamber only accommodates 2 people traditionally. Traditionally, yes, Goku acknowledged. But with my new awareness of dimensional mechanics, I might be able to modify its parameters, expand its capacity without compromising the time dilation effect. Chi-Chi considered this, exchanging glances with Bulma. A year together in an isolated pocket dimension, training you to control cosmic forces while Chronos prepares its next attack on our reality. A small, determined smile touched her lips. Sounds like another Tuesday for us. Despite everything, Goku chuckled at her dry observation. Through gods and demons, universal tournaments and cosmic threats, Chi-Chi had maintained her pragmatic resilience, adapting to increasingly bizarre circumstances with remarkable composure. Bulma's scientific mind had already shifted to practical considerations. I'll need to bring specialized equipment, monitoring systems, prototype chronometric technology, and we'll need some way to communicate with the outside world if new threats emerge while we're training. Gohan can modify the chamber's entrance to permit communication without disrupting the time dilation effect, Goku suggested. He understands the principles behind its operation better than anyone except perhaps Dend. As they discussed logistics, Goku felt something stirring within him, not just recovering strength, but evolving awareness. His brief contact with Chronos had catalyzed changes in his chronometric adaptation, accelerating integration processes that might otherwise have taken months or years. With careful concentration, he extended his senses beyond conventional perception, exploring the expanded capabilities with methodical patience unusual for his typically impulsive nature. To his surprise, he found he could now perceive individual timeline branches with unprecedented clarity, not just his own reality, but adjacent probability tracks where events had unfolded differently. In one nearby branch, he glimpsed himself never having hit his head as a child, growing up as Kakarot the Destroyer rather than Goku the Protector. In another, he'd arrived on Earth decades later, finding a world already subjugated by Frieza's empire. Countless variations spiraled outward, some drastically different, others varying only in minor details. But what troubled him most was what he couldn't see. gaps in the multiverse lattice where timeline branches should exist but had been removed completely. Empty spaces in probability distribution patterns, like missing teeth in cosmic architecture. It's already happened, he murmured, drawing concerned looks from Chi-Chi and Bulma. Chronos has already erased entire timeline branches from existence. Our reality isn't the first targeted for reclamation. How many? Bulma asked quietly, scientific detachment temporarily abandoned in face of such existential horror. Thousands, maybe millions. Goku's expression darkened as galaxies spun in his pupils. And it's accelerating. The closer Chronos gets to our dimensional coordinates, the faster surrounding timelines collapse. How long do we have? Chi-Chi's question cut to the practical heart of the matter. Goku considered, calculating based on his new perception of chronometric progression patterns. Based on current collapse rate and assuming no further acceleration, 3 weeks in conventional time. 3 weeks before Chronos reaches our timeline branch and attempts full manifestation. 3 weeks, Bulma repeated, mind already calculating. That gives us almost 2 years of training time in the hyperbolic chamber, accounting for rest periods between sessions. Will it be enough? Chi-Chi asked the question they were all thinking. Goku met her gaze directly, no false confidence in his expression but unshakable determination nonetheless. It has to be, not just for our reality, but for all the remaining timelines in Chronos' path. As if responding to his resolve, the chronometric energy within him flared momentarily, galaxies in his eyes, spinning faster as power surged through his system. For a brief instant, both women could see what he was becoming, not just a Saiyan warrior with cosmic powers, but something fundamentally integrated into the architecture of reality itself. A living counterforce to Chronos' rigid purpose, embodying the principle that life, choice, and diversity of possibility held value worth preserving. Then we begin immediately, Chi-Chi decided, military efficiency in her voice. Bulma, what equipment do you need prepared? I'll help organize while Goku continues recovering. As the two women discussed preparations, Goku closed his eyes, focusing inward on the continuing transformation of his energy systems. Beyond the immediate crisis, beyond the looming threat of Chronos, he sensed something else, a purpose emerging from the cosmic integration he'd undergone. The Nexus hadn't chosen him randomly. Somewhere in the vast calculation of probability and cosmic necessity, his specific combination of attributes had been deemed essential: Saiyan adaptability and growing potential, human compassion and protective instinct, divine key training and transcendent awareness, all culminating in a being kappa BLE of challenging what had previously been inevitable. And central to that calculation were the connections that anchored him across timeline branches, relationships that transcended conventional definitions. Bonds that remained constant despite infinite variations in detail. As Chronos approached with inexorable purpose, those connections would prove either their greatest strength or their greatest vulnerability. Only time would tell. And time, ironically, was now his to master. Chapter 2 end.